Hello one and all, this is Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. This time around, Sifu Vengeance Edition for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC. Sifu is a third-person action-adventure kung fu experience focusing on hand-to-hand combat that came out earlier in 2022. Now, the reason I'm talking about this game and giving my first impressions much later after the initial release is because of the release of the Vengeance Edition. And the Vengeance Edition, beyond being an on-disc release as well as a digital release, has one of the biggest changes to the overall game that will, to me, encourage more players to experience what I have experienced thus far as a very stellar game. Now, as I mentioned, this game is focusing on you taking control of an unnamed protagonist, either a male or a female character that you choose at the beginning of the story, as he or she goes on a quest to avenge the death of their father after their Sifu or master was overtaken and defeated. Beyond the basic combat patterns that we've gotten to know and love in these type of games with light strikes, heavy strikes, blocking, and most importantly parrying, because blocking at the most critical time right before your character is hit, you'll be able to parry and stun an opponent to potentially unleash a series of strikes that could end up in a takedown. Now, takedowns are very important because with them you are able to restore a bit of health. In this game, not only are the bosses incredibly hard and will damage you, the regular characters, the grunts, will hound you, will tear you up, and will knock you down incredibly fast. And one of the reasons for that is because there is a break gauge that is associated with your blocking, or the structural gauge as it's known in this game. At the bottom of the screen, it will start to fill up the more you block and not parry. If you continuously block, you will have your break gauge shatter, and if that happens, you'll not only be stunned, but while you're recovering, you'll be unable to block in general. Now, if you do die, and this is one of the most interesting aspects about this game, your character actually ages with death. You can respawn, but you'll respawn a year older. And of course, as you would know, as you get older, you get slower, but in this game, as you get older, you get slower, it becomes harder to run and to sprint and to dodge. Your health actually decreases, so you cannot take as much damage, but as you get older, you do more damage. So you become something like a glass cannon where you can only take a few strikes. But if you're able to dodge and parry perfectly, you can unleash these devastating attacks that normally as you're younger wouldn't be able to put a person down in one hit, but could if you're, say, 50, 60 years old. Now, the game is actually very forgiving in that regard, as you're able to go back and use the chapter select if you finish that chapter, and try to do it over again and have a better age, so when you start the next chapter you will actually be younger and have a better chance of survival, because the older you get, the better chance of you actually having a game over and have to start over, which of course, depending on how good you are, can be a detrimental situation, a hair-raising, hair-pulling out situation, or just can be a reinforcing of learning where you have to go, learning what you have to do, learning your enemy types, and getting better. Deaths actually stack when it comes to age. And this is the part where I want to talk about the Vengeance Edition that I think makes this a lot more accessible to players that either are new to the game or don't want to be too stressed out or don't want to feel like they're overwhelmed and can't progress. On normal difficulty, which is pretty much the standard difficulty that was across the board when the game first released, and the master difficulty, the highest difficulty, aging actually stacks. So if you say you die at 21, you'll go to 22 of course, but that 1 will stay there. So when you die the next time at 22, it actually adds to that 1, so you'll age 2 years instead of 1 year. Whereas on the easiest difficulty, you only age 1 year per death. So that makes it a lot easier to survive and learn. And this is complemented by the fact that there are these various shrines that are located throughout each level. You can utilize either the points that you've earned to increase certain aspects of your character, including experience points that can be used to purchase new skills. And those experience points, when it comes to the easiest difficulty, also allows for you to rejuvenate and restore some of the years that are associated with your main character. So I believe it's like 5 years that you can erase and go back with, I believe, 1,000 XP points. So once again, on the easiest difficulty, this game is a lot more accessible, a lot less hectic and harrowing for those who just don't have the patience for it. And I know there will be some that will complain that you feel like the basis and the standard of what this game was and what this game is, especially when it first came out, is kind of lost. But thankfully you have the option of playing any difficulty that you want. But if you turn down the difficulty, you have to start a new game to turn the difficulty back up. So like for yours truly, I was trying to play on normal difficulty, and that's what I try to stick with, because I don't want to lose the progress that I've started by bumping down to the easiest difficulty and then having to start over to try to test myself and see if I can actually survive. There are some issues when it comes to the overall gameplay that goes beyond just the difficulty level. One of the main issues, especially in more enclosed areas, is the camera. Though the camera does a good job of sweeping in and going through objects, there will be difficult times where you'll be in a corner and the camera will kind of become intrusive and you won't be able to see your character or the enemies that have surrounded you. So of course, with a game that is very connected to timing and really seeing where your opponent is, this can be a big issue in the more enclosed areas. Another issue is the general control scheme. There's a lot that you can do when it comes to just the overall gameplay, including the striking, the blocking, the dodging, and just interacting with objects, including collectibles. Thankfully, the game allows you to fully remap the control scheme to your pleasure, but still, for gamers that may not have the most intuitive fingers or just the dexterity, it may be kind of difficult to get into this game, especially with the lightning fast speed that is necessary for certain enemies and bosses. There is a dialogue system that I've noticed does work most of the time. I have read that you can actually avoid certain fights with certain dialogue choices, but I've yet to be able to do that. Overall, Sifu Vengeance Edition is a great upgrade to a game that's already very good. I hope this version acts as a doorway for other players to give this game an opportunity, because if you're up for the challenge and you enjoy these type of games, these beat 'em up third-person games, you will enthusiastically love this game even with the difficulty. But if you're not, if you don't feel like you want to be stressed out, or you just don't feel like you want to have your wrists and hands cramping up after a very, very strenuous boss battle, then this may not be the game for you. But I still say give it a try. Even if you have to put it on the easiest difficulty, you will find something that you will love about this game. So there you have it. This has been Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. Sifu Vengeance Edition for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC. Now if you don't mind, I have entered a very, very lush garden that houses a man with a machete. And if I'm not careful, he will slice me down, but I will use all of the skills I've obtained thus far, even though I'm rapidly aging, to make this enemy say, "Oh Lordy."